What a shame. Well, apparently Americans are okay with transgender individuals serving in the military, but that's not the case when it comes to taking part in competitive sports. A recent Gallup survey found that 66% of the public are okay with openly transgender men and women serving in the military. But when it comes to sports, Gallup found that the majority of Americans, 62%, say that trans athletes should only be allowed to play on sports teams that correspond with their birth gender. Just 34% say they should be able to play on teams that match their gender identity. The numbers are from Gallup's annual Values and Beliefs Survey conducted in the first half of May. I want to bring in America's Constitution coach and Victory News contributor Rick Green. Rick, let's talk quickly about the Hyde Amendment. You know, the Biden administration and the far left and the Democrats in this country want to fund abortions, which is why it's so important, like all these states like Texas and others that are passing these heartbeat bills is so very critical.
It is critical, Tim. Look, let's just think about it. I'm out here doing one of my constitutional defense classes. I've got a ton of veterans with me, a ton of patriots, a ton of young people that love the country, love the Constitution. They understand that on Memorial Day, the most important thing we can do is what Lincoln said. That's to have an increased devotion to the cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. Tim, I don't think the cause that our men and women in uniform gave the last full measure of devotion for was to take innocent life. And yet here you have a party that thinks that that's almost like a religion, and that you have a right to this, to the point that if you can't afford to pay for the death of the child, I have to pay for you to go take the life of this child. This is so un-American and against everything that our Constitution, our Declaration, and our nation stands for. But as you heard the president say, he believes that it's so important that he's willing to take your tax dollars to pay for someone to do it.
You know, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, of course, as well, but this being Memorial Day, it's so important for us to give thanks for the people that have laid down their life. You know, this is a country that's grateful for the service of our men and women. Because of them, we have the freedom to do what we're doing right here today.
That's right, man. And I think we're kind of right now confused as a nation as to what they died for and what they sacrificed for. We're confused about what it means to be an American. We have amnesia, as Mike Huckabee puts it. We don't know our history, and we don't know what it really means to be an American. So Memorial Day is a great chance to really think about that. What did they die for? What is it that we should live for? If they died for our freedom, how do we live it out? That poll that you shared, Tim, on one hand, good news that 60-something% said no, guys should not play in women's sport. But can you imagine that 34% think that's okay, that we've lied to our people, lied to our children enough that we're living out Romans 1:22, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. We're literally thinking it's okay for a man that thinks he's a woman to then go act like a woman and take away women's sports from them and conquer their sports. It's an awful, evil time that we live in, and that's why Salt and Light's so important. That's why Victory News is so important.
But the light is always brighter in these darkest
right.
times, and so that's why Victory News is here. That's why we're excited about it. I want to go with you real quick to Senator Bob Guida from New Hampshire and what happened there. This is why so many states are passing election reform laws. Now, Texas tried, and the Democrats walked out. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I'm just going to be blunt with you guys. This is a failure of leadership by Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Patrick, and the Speaker of the House. I mean, there's no reason they should have put the Democrats in a position to be able to do this just 2 days before the session was going to end. These things should have been passed and done weeks ago. All of the major agenda items should have been done. Something as important as election integrity, there's no reason they shouldn't have gotten that done. And now the Democrats have been able to walk out like they did, 20 years ago. They did this on redistricting. And we'll have to come back and have a special session and all that. And it'll cost the taxpayers a ton of money. So, yeah, it's a failure of leadership at the top. But really, it's also revealing that the Democrats would think that something was so important they would leave their job, they would run from their job and not stay there and vote like we elected them to, meaning the people in their districts, when what we're talking about here is making sure that everybody gets to vote. That's all we're talking about. Everybody gets to vote, and nobody gets to steal your vote from you by casting an illegal vote that would cancel yours out. That's all we're talking about here. Yeah, and yet they're willing to run from the Capitol to keep that from happening. Now, I do hope it gets corrected. I think it will.
What we've always said, what Flashpoint has always said, to repeat what Kenneth Copeland has always taught us, that your vote is your seed. It's the most important thing.
Amen.
Mike, over to you.